Doc Talk Tuesdays. You looking clean, Doctor. How you doing today?
I'm wearing a mint green suit. Not many people will wear it, but I'm bold.
I like it, man. I like
Hey,
it
Doc, I appreciate it. I know you're busy. Let me ask you something. Is Joe Burrow injured or hurt?
He's injured. He's hurt too, but I mean, his wallet ain't hurting, but everything else is. The problem is he can't push off. His old. I mean, I didn't watch a whole lot of that game, but I mean, if you're all the defenders knows what's wrong with you. You're not fooling nobody.
Yeah.
Now you're without T. Higgins for probably 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. You know, you got a rib fracture. I'm assuming it's not like an open fracture where he punctured a lung or anything like that, but because they would have said something. But, you know, the problem is every week, maybe he gets about 10% healthier. But he probably needs to miss a month to get really healthy. Can they afford that? I mean, they looked awful with him.
Yeah, that's my point. I don't get it. Let me ask you this: Saquon Barkley. Any gossip word or gossip about his return?
So the issue I have with Saquon is a couple of variables. One, this is the second time he's had a high ankle on this side. Second part, this is his same knee as his ACL. There's a little bit of compensation there. And their line isn't very good. He's trying to return back so he can play more games so he can make more money next year. But he knows he's playing with fire because if he comes back too soon, he's going to probably re-injure it and then be done for the year. So there's a slippery slope. He didn't have the same luxury as Eckler, who happened to have a bye in the middle, early bye. He didn't have that luxury. So, you know, Jones could really use him. We saw last night. That was a hot match.
Yeah.
You know, but the problem, you know, maybe week 5, maybe. And even then, he's probably going to be 75, 80% healthy. You know, these high ankles, you can't pivot. You can't cut and rotate that ankle. And that's what they need to do. I mean, that's everything they need to do.
Man, who else is on the? Who else is for the common fan out here or the fantasy fan? Who else is on the watch right now? That's out a few weeks that can come back, or guys like Kyler Murray who maybe not return at all. Is he ever going to be lifted off the IR?
Dobbs looked pretty damn good. He looked better than Mac Jones. In terms of, I think there's a chance Kyler comes back on week 7 or 8, something like that. 6, 7. Yeah. I don't think 6 is a little aggressive, but they said he wasn't going to be activated. But this team isn't tanking. I mean, they don't look like they're tanking. They're not doing a very good job, but they are. So you know, so Michael Wilson looks good on them, the big wide receiver. Yeah, and then you know, we'll see Jameson Williams come back probably this week. Jonathan Taylor could be back tomorrow on the field. He should be healthy. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, if they're going to reconcile their differences, if he's going to stay out.
That's what I'm hearing, Doc. That's what I'm hearing. I'm the Colts fan. I've been hearing good things about Jonathan Taylor. I'm hearing that he's looking forward to kind of rekindle that flame, and I think we should be expecting to see him play a little bit. So
the only way he's gonna feel good and make good money next year is if he proves it on the field.
Yep.
Can't do that sitting in a courtroom, so to speak, a debating room, because, you know, what have you done for me lately?
Yep.
You know, and I mean, there's a couple guys that Deontay Johnson should be back in 2 weeks. Should be. They just lost Freiermuth for another 2 to 3 weeks. Pickett probably out, and maybe he could play this week, but they'd be dumb to play him. They have a bye next week, so they should probably hold out until the following week. Those are the main guys that are popping into my head. There's a couple guys.
Jimmy G, concussion?
Yeah, he should be able to come back. So this is important to note. We have not seen a player suffer a concussion on a Sunday and be able to make it back for the following Sunday yet.
Well, that means Jamal Adams will be missing next week then, right? Jamal Adams, who returned first game back and gets concussed immediately.
He was pretty disappointed, but you know, you grind for that long for that hard out. That's a bad injury, and then all of a sudden, boom, you know, early on in the game, and then so let's cover this real quick. So I tweeted this out last night, but some people may not have caught it. So why did it go to the UNC? So the reason why they have the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant, which is the kind of the one that got in trouble last year with Tua, is because the players know the sports med doc, like me. They know that each team has 2 sports med docs. Those are the ones that cover the surgeon, the concussions. The surgeons don't manage concussions at all. They're not trained to do though. So the problem is the players can develop a good relationship with the sports med doc, so they can kind of take it easy on them. But the neurotrauma consultant doesn't know the player at all. We don't even know which ones who they are. So they are another line of defense to make sure that player is not going back to the field with a concussion. So that's why. So the only reason he would have saw him or her, the neurotrauma consultant, is if the first doc said it was okay. If first doc said it was concussion, it was done. It don't matter. It doesn't need to get checked twice. But if he passed the first inspection, but he had ataxia on the field, it shouldn't even have been a question. It was over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was livid. Is that him getting his senses back and and then he's showing out because he's got some history of being a little bit of a shitbird. But is that him getting his senses back? And everyone all the naysayers think, oh, he can do that. He can come back and play. Can you explain why?
Yeah, you can have what we call emotional liability, which basically means your emotions are kind of all over the map. And think about it. This guy's rehab for almost a year straight, basically. Quad tendon tear, if I remember correctly, is what he had. Bad injury, real bad injury, sometimes career ending. He questioned whether or not he wanted to come back. His first game back, first getting in, now he sustains a concussion. I mean, think about how frustrated he's got to be. And I don't know his injury history in terms of concussions. Some of these guys don't come back in a week. Sometimes it takes a month. So it's like, it's like kind of getting, the carrot and then all of a sudden it's gone again.
Yeah.
Hey Doc, we had another Achilles tear. I think it's 6 or 7 this year. The most we've ever seen. Is it the most you've seen in a long time?
Yeah. Without going back historically on the top of my head, yeah. And I think this one, it may have been another compensation. This was the opposite of his ACL. So, if you're, I don't remember which side was which, but say it was the left knee and the right Achilles. So if you're rehabbing that left knee, you can't really use that left heel, a whole lot to be explosive because you really can't mess with that ACL yet. So you're doing everything off the right side. You're pushing off. That's your power side, right? The problem is that tendon has now worked a lot more than the other tendon. And you haven't really been able to push it 100% because of that left knee. So now it's like you have 2 weak sides. You can't run with one leg. I mean, so it's like, and then one of the things I specialize in is what we call musculoskeletal ultrasound. So basically putting an ultrasound on a tissue, on a tendon, on a shoulder, whatever, and looking at the quality of the tendon visually. This can be more accurate than an MRI, depending on how good you are and how good the machine is. This is easy to do. Sometimes it's obvious and this tendon is really beat up, but some of these guys don't want to do that unless they are feeling pain. But for a 2-hour evaluation of all the tendons in your body for maybe $300 or something like that, give or take, you can get a good gauge of how your tendons are doing. And then if you want to bring it further, and not all the machines can do that, ours happens too because we got a crazy one, but there's something called shear wave technology, which allows you to use the sound wave instead of using it to create visual. It bounces the sound wave off the tissue, and then depending on the speed it bounces back will depend on how strong or weak the tissue is.
Damn.
So it tells you the tensile strength of that tendon. And basically you pick the tendon, you take a screenshot, and then you make these little circles, and it's like usually 6 to 8 circles, and then you basically pick along the tendon, and then it will tell you each spot what the tensile strength is compared to the next one, and it gives a number out of 100 or out of 300 or whatever scale you have. So it basically can tell you, because visually it may look good, but that can tell you if there's weakness in that tendon. And that's some of the stuff we're starting to use. The data's not quite there yet, but it'll get there. It takes time. They're using it in baseball pitchers for UCL.
Doc, you've been highly suspicious of Cooper Kupp return based on the docs that the LA Rams are using. The LA Rams in LA have one of the best teams. You got LA is one of the number one, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, everybody goes to LA to get worked on. He goes up north to Minnesota, I believe you said. Any new suspicion?
So, I mean, I guess there's good news that he should be getting back on the field tomorrow. Maybe. Usually Wednesday's the first day. I have some concerns just because it hasn't been linear. I think he's going to return this year. My suspicion is, can he stay healthy? He's been healthy enough, but he's also basically missed 4+ weeks. Can he play, 30, 40, 50 snaps, run 20, 30 routes, 40 routes, and then do it again next week?
Yeah,
that'll be the question. The talent's there. We know that he's going to get massive volume. We know that even with Puka. Puka's been on the outside predominantly, so I'm not really worried about that. But can that hamstring or any other soft tissue? What happened here? What are we missing? This is not a traditional, issue. Players over 30 traditionally don't drop off that much. We've seen some. Julio, DeAndre has popped off a little bit, but in general, they usually do okay. Why did his just fall off the planet and miss, the first month of the season after a minor retweak after 4 or 5 weeks? It just, something doesn't add up here.
The team that I got in the NFC West this year, I think is going to get it done, and I've been pleased over the last few weeks. But Geno Smith, anything to worry about Geno in Seattle last night?
Yeah, so I watched that play. I try to run it back. I know Geno actually, but my suspicion is it could have been an ankle, but I think he got lucky. It could have been a high ankle, but I think he got lucky based on the way his ankle rolled. It wasn't flat. It was more kind of on the side. And as a result, remember they're playing in the deadly MetLife, and turf has concrete under it. So if he landed, it depended on how his knee landed. If it landed directly on his knee, that's a PCL. If the force was more toward the inside, that would be an MCL. Could be both, but usually the fact that he came back in is good, right? My suspicion is he got x-rays which were negative. It's really hard for that to be positive unless he fractured his kneecap. But they also probably braced him up. I didn't watch a whole lot of the second half, but my suspicion is they braced him up. Now they're going to have to see what he's dealing with. If it's a PCL, which is what Lamar had, then his knee's going to be loose. If it's an MCL, then that's the one on the inside. They're going to probably brace him up, and he won't have the same mobility. The problem with an MCL is the faster you return, the more risk you put on the ACL.
Hey, Doc, can you dive in before you get out of here? And I appreciate you coming on. I know Smitty has something for you, but I want to know, can you explain to the fans, would you recommend to fly him back to Seattle across the country for risk of more inflation, or do you keep him in New York if something is up?
So that's a good question. I don't know what their team arrangements were. Sometimes they fly out same night, so in that regard, it would be fine. If they were staying in New York, then you can get an MRI, but usually they want to keep it in-house. They want to keep it hush so they don't.
But is the flight risking any more damage?
No, not particularly. He's going to have swelling regardless, and they're going to do what they can do. They're going to wrap it appropriately, but the tissue is what the tissue is. It's not going to change with the flight. The only time that usually matters is with lung issue or issue with pressure, because if you have a lung issue, the atmospheric pressure can collapse that lung worse or something like that. So usually that's when we worry about flights, cervical stuff, weird stuff like that. But this type of stuff, unless it was a gnarly fracture like Alex Smith or something like that, usually they're okay to fly.
Gotcha. Now, one more thing on my end. Sunday Night Football, we saw Aaron Rodgers on the sideline. He got a lot of attention on Twitter. Everyone was so surprised that how well he was moving with that, surgery repaired Achilles that he just got 2.5 weeks ago.
Yep.
Are you surprised at all? Were you surprised to see how well he was moving?
So, no, the good thing about these nowadays is the incision is really small, like about the size of your thumb, like pretty small. Usually they wear in a Cam Walker boot, and the boot has a rounded bottom, so you don't really walk, you kind of roll. And you have a heel lift. So they'll put these little spacers so that your heel is kind of higher up. And with each week or every other week, or however they allocate it, they'll remove those so it kind of lowers it. So, and that will allow the tension on the Achilles. So the faster you remove it, the more stress on the Achilles, the more risk of re-injury. So this is to be expected. He was probably on some pain meds, or maybe he's already off them by now. And now the hard part is rehab. That's the hardest part. So he was there for support. Wilson didn't actually look half bad, kind of crazy. But you know, unless they happen to make the playoffs, it's kind of a moot point when he's actually ready.
Is he getting blood, platelet injection or infusion, or what is it, whatever that's called? Is he getting that stuff
PRP?
done?
So usually, if you don't do it in the OR, a lot of the surgeons do it in the OR now. You can add amniotic tissue allograft, which is one of my favorites. You can add PRP or plasma. Some of the guys will add bone marrow. You can do fat as well. It depends on the surgeon. I don't know what Elatrash does or what his forte is. But if not, they usually wait for surgical clearance, which is usually about 6 weeks. So when I have a guy who's had surgery and wants to add stem cells, I have to wait 6 weeks. I usually have them wait 6 weeks, get the surgical clearance, and then we can inject it. Because if you do it before that, there's a slight risk of infection. But I don't want the surgeon to say, "Hey, you know, your product messed up my surgery." So I want that clearance first. So unless the surgeon himself did it in the OR, I don't think he's probably going to do it for another month or so.
Man, Doc, I can't thank you enough for hopping on. I know you're a busy man. I appreciate it. Make sure everybody follows Dr. Jesse Morse on Twitter, Instagram. Appreciate you, brother. We'll see you next week. Thank you.